they are doing you the favor by listening to you. But what they don't know until they listen to you is that you're doing them the bigger favor in the long run because of all the money you're going to make.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Welcome to another edition of Contest of Challengers. As James Van Osdol had just said, this is that very podcast. Perhaps you might know it as a comics industry business podcast on the Yak Channel Podcast Network in Chicago, along with other podcasts such as The Daily Life of Frank, Car Con Carne. It's Car Con Carne, but I say con, but it's con. Car Con Carne. And more. A whole bunch more on the Yak Channel Podcast Network. But since this is Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, as we've mentioned now 3 times, I am one of your hosts, Patrick Brower.
And I'm the other host, W. Dal Bush.
And as we asked for last week, I was going to say promised, but we didn't really promise it.
No.
We asked for listener questions, and we have listener questions on these very sheets of paper.
Plural, even.
Yeah, that's right.
More than singular.
We will discuss these questions on this, the viewer question. Viewer.
Wow.
Where did that come from?
Oof.
I mean, people have to be looking at something when they listen to this.
Yikes.
Because if they close their eyes, they will fall asleep.
Unforced error. We should also mention very early in this podcast, no Endgame spoilers here. People can listen to this and not have to worry about Endgame being spoiled because this is one of the few pop culture elements of this modern world that we will not be talking about Endgame.
Well, this is a business podcast, Al, and
that doesn't matter.
I don't even know
it's everywhere.
What Endgame is.
It's everywhere.
So let's move on to, I guess, the beginning game with our first questions. Do you think this part is integral to the questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's read it all.
Okay. This comes from Joseph Coco. Thank you for your question.
Thanks, Joseph.
My fiancé is an independent comic artist, and I've been considering hiring someone to call comic shops to see if they would carry her next middle-grade graphic novel when it's released. We're hoping to get to Diamond, shoot higher, but will be available through Ingram, Baker, and Taylor if not. That's good. My question, and this is not him, this is me, my question is this self-published or is this by a publisher?
Hard to say.
Do you know, I haven't even considered, but this is probably a dumb question in this point in our careers. Can you self-publish and be in Ingram, Baker, and Taylor?
I don't see why not.
Huh, okay. So, my questions are, this is back to Joseph. Question number 1. If someone called the store and gave a brief pitch of the first and second volumes of an indie middle age. Hi, I'm a comic, I'm middle age.
Yeah.
An indie...
That's just a Tom King comic. That's what that is.
Oh, yes, please. Please call the store, Tom King.
Sure.
Tell us about your comics.
It's about grown men who are very sad about being grown men.
But I like his work. But
don't get me wrong, I like Tom King's work a lot, but let me boil it down to one thesis statement. It's about grown men who are very sad about being grown men.
I don't want to read a comic book about my life.
Well...
If someone called the store and gave a brief pitch of the first and second volumes of an indie middle grade comic, they said they weren't local but had a sizable marketing budget, would challengers and more generally other comic shops consider ordering it through Diamond even if you weren't familiar with the author and the title?
First of all, let me say that if you have a marketing budget, I would highly caution you not to spend that marketing budget trying to move the needle at comic shops. Specifically, if you have a middle grade graphic novel. There are plenty of bookstores that have much better reach into that market than the average comic shop does. And to be perfectly honest, the average comic shop probably could not care less about middle grade graphic novels.
Well, hold on. Okay, here it says middle grade graphic novel. Here it said middle grade comic. So
I assume it's a graphic novel.
yeah, okay. Because if it's a comic book, then it wouldn't.
Yeah, Baker and Taylor and Ingram would not carry that,
Okay.
probably.
So we're assuming it's a graphic novel. He's a graphic novel.
Right.
Fine.
It is very smart that this fiance is doing a middle grade graphic novel. From my experience of looking at what comic shops carry as far as younger readers and all ages material, there are some stores that do great with it, some stores that really get behind it. That number of stores is very low. I don't know if Diamond could, if they're going to be carrying the graphic novel, could give a prospective publisher / artist a better look into what accounts might be worth contacting to try and drive up your sales.
I can't see that they would give that information without charging, though, but they do have a marketing budget.
But if you have a marketing budget, maybe you can pay Diamond for that.
So
or possibly like a site like ICV2 that might have, again, maybe a better insight into what specific stores have gotten behind all ages and younger readers material. As a market, don't know if it's worth it to just cold call stores.
Do we assume that middle grade is the same as YA, or is middle grade younger?
No, middle grade is Reina stuff, basically. Middle grade is considered like 4th to 6th grade.
Okay. So I was going to say Ink or Zoom.
Zoom.
Okay. So Ink is the one that's slightly older.
Yeah, Ink is...
Unless it's Catwoman, then it's virtually adult.
No, I think all of the Ink stuff is intended to be YA, younger teen oriented.
I was making a joke about the announcement this week of Catwoman having specifically more mature themes.
More trigger warnings. Yeah, I mean...
But they literally raised the age limit on just that one.
I guess, like, and that's, not to get off on a tangent here, but I think that's going to be a growing pains thing for DC as a company that maybe does not have a ton of experience with YA or middle grade stuff to figure out exactly what content is going to be appropriate for those audiences and specifically for the venues that are going to be carrying those books. You don't want pushback from major accounts saying, hey, you sold us a book that was for kids, and boy, is this not for kids.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, getting back to the question, yeah, I mean, we've talked before about the idea of it's nice to get phone calls from publishers and creators to show that they are trying to support their projects. It doesn't automatically mean we'll order them, but it does mean that we will probably give them a look in the catalog.
And we have also talked before about how the processes by which we go through the catalog, and this is a catalog week, a new previous catalog came out. Mm-hmm. Dal had already gone through the entire text file of it, and then went through the full catalog. Normally, I get the catalog first, the printed catalog. I go through and circle everything from the back half that I think we want. I skip the major publishers, your Marvels, your DCs, your Images, but I'll go to the back half of the catalog and do the rest.
Kind of the things that you don't want to miss in the mix of all that stuff in the back. Exactly. There's a lot of things, and there's reoffered items and publishers we don't necessarily carry, a lot of variant cover kind of stuff, so it can sometimes help to kind of pull the needles out of the haystack by circling some things ahead of time.
So I'll circle some stuff, and there have been an occasion or so where a non-local creator is talking about their book either on the phone or in the store, and it's a book I've already circled,
right?
Which is always a fun little coincidence.
Yeah, and that'll happen sometimes when people call up and they'll say, "Hey, I've got this book in the new catalog," and it's like, "Yeah, we already know about it," and they don't usually hear that, and that's nice for us, but sad for them.
If it's on the phone and I have the time, I'll actually pull the catalog out and go to that page to see what it is.
Sure.
But yes, we personally would take the time and listen, although we seem to be getting a plethora of smaller publisher PDFs, and I don't read them all.
No, me neither. But that's me doing my job badly. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I download a lot of them. I don't download all of them, which I should, and then the ones I download, I don't look at frequently until the books are actually on the stands, and then it's like, well, I guess I'll read it now, but that's not doing that publisher any good. I
read Ignition today, the Humanoids book by Mark Waid.
Right, yeah.
They sent us a
Mark Waid, the guy, one of the guys from Black AF, right?
Yeah. I read it. I liked it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It can go places. There's a few points where
Phil Briones does the art on that, right? He was one of the Aquaman Rebirth guys.
Right? Okay. I legit don't remember. The art is fine.
Okay.
I have no problem with the art.
Okay.
The things that stood out to me were some of the dialogue that the kids were saying, because these are high school kids.
Right.
So, and I don't know who dialogued the book, but they use very specific of the time phrases and slang,
Sure.
including they have to phonetically spell out a specific, I'll reference it this way, drag queen-esque noise that Cardi B makes a lot.
Okay.
That is akin to a pigeon cooing,
Okay.
which is basically, as Cardi B explains it, the word okay is played out.
Right.
So this is the new okay, but it's a noise.
I heard you tried to trademark that.
Did you really?
Or maybe copyright? I always mix up the two.
Gina Challenger can do it very well.
Okay.
I
You don't feel like you can?
it's not worth doing here.
Okay.
I don't.
I'm sure people can find it on YouTube.
It's not a thing that I would ever say in normal conversations. So
No.
me saying it now is as disingenuous as I felt some of the dialogue was. But it was.
But that stuff's always fun because that's the version of like something that you want to see in 20 years. Is like, oh my god, look at how they were, look at how they were
spelled
talking and
it
writing.
OKRRRT,
Okay.
but the actual, like when you look it up on Urban Dictionary or what have you,
Sure.
there's no T. It's OKRRR.
Okay.
So that's so things like that stood out to me. But I am not in a high school every day, surrounded by
Probably
kids,
for everyone's safety, I'm assuming.
and like some of the dialogue is OMG,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that, and it's interesting. It's definitely a snapshot of the world we live in. There's an Alex Jones-esque character.
Okay.
It takes place in a school that had a mass shooting at the end of last school year, and this is the start of the next school year.
Okay.
But I mean, I honestly, I know that our expectations aren't high, and honestly, I keep saying honestly, the first thing in the book is a small text piece of Mark Waid about why he's writing this book,
Okay.
and I feel like that should be saved to the end of the book.
Do you think that's going to be that way in the published book, or maybe just in the PDF
No,
to
this
retailers?
is 100% the published book.
Huh.
Because it starts with all the... Oh, maybe not. It starts with all the variant covers.
I would hope that they would maybe front load that for retailers
But-
to go, here's, you care about Mark Waid, here's why Mark Waid is doing this, and then here's the comic book.
This was in an email sent from Humanoids,
Right.
from Mark Waid,
Sure.
that had a different why I'm doing this book. So, I don't know. I hope it's not part of the book, because I think it kills kind of I wanted to say the flow, but
Yeah.
it's not flowing because you haven't started
Well,
yet.
I would hope it wouldn't be the first thing you read.
Right.
That feels really strange to have the author go, hey, before I read this book, let me tell you about why I did it. Like, let me read it, and then you can tell me about that.
And I read DC's #1 as soon as we were able to, and
Sure.
apparently it is the most downloaded DC PDF.
Sure. DC Zombies.
So much that they're looking at maybe doing a PDF of #2.
Yeah. Again, not to get off on a tangent, but Deceased is not for me as a comic book reader. I like
Right.
Tom Taylor a lot as a
Sure.
writer. That's not the kind of storytelling that I clamor for. However, as a retailer, I love this kind of book because I know exactly, A, who the audience is, and B, how big that audience is. A lot of
And
stuff
see
that I
how
see...
to sell it, how to market it.
The thing that I don't like a lot from major publishers, frequently like Marvel and DC, Marvel more than most, is that I look at the catalog and I go, I don't know who this is supposed to be for, and if I do, I know how small that audience is, and I don't know why you're making this.
So what if a creator...
They should do What If. What If would sell like crazy.
There, it's going to be a cartoon.
It would sell like crazy as a comic book.
Like crazy?
Like crazy.
They constantly do what ifs. Well, a couple times a year they do a month-long what if event.
If they did a monthly What If book...
Which, for the record, I've been preaching for a long time now, so I'm not
Right.
against you. But, I mean, I wouldn't... We're not ordering 100 copies of What If #1.
Well, if it didn't seem like something they were just shoveling out the door, and by creative teams that frequently don't even understand what the what if premise is and how it's different from an Elseworlds, then it would sell like crazy. But again, that's just getting back to the idea of there's so many things that are created, and it's like, why? What is
Sure.
the market? Deceased is, I know what the market is. It's not my market, but at least it's a comic book created to serve a particular audience. We're way off track here. Let's get back to the question.
What if a creator in their PDF email
Sure.
says, hey, this is perfect for fans of this book, Nimona, whatever, blah blah blah.
Sure, I think that stuff is good. I sometimes that has the opposite effect on me, where it either gets hyper specific, where it's like,
you mean like East of West and Akira?
no, it's the second thing. The first thing that I hate when it gets hyper specific is when it references like some random movie from like 6 years ago meets a book that nobody buys, and it's like, well, you should have told me nothing, because now I feel like this is for the guy who wrote it and nobody else. The second thing that bugs me is when it becomes too highfalutin, like when it's Saga meets East of West, or Akira meets like Nick Dornaso's Sabrina, and it's like, all right, scale it down. This is by people that I've never heard of, or people who I know are not working at that level, unless they've had like a quantum leap in their abilities in the last 18 months. Measure my expectations a little bit better. Like, don't tell me it's going to be.
Who knew Fiona Staples when Saga came out?
But they didn't even necessarily pitch it as that. They didn't say it was the next greatest book of all time. They were just like, hey, Brian K. Vaughan did Y: The Last Man. This is a book we're confident in. Give it a read. And we didn't went, holy crap, this thing's amazing.
How great would it be if they marketed it as, this is the next Saga?
That would be great.
Right. Okay. So do you think we did that? We had.
Yeah. Getting back to the question, I think it's mostly just.
Would you consider ordering it?
I would always consider ordering it. I don't know that getting a phone call would make me more likely to order it, because it would just make me more aware of it.
However, if we got the phone call and it was available through Diamond, that is a better chance of us ordering it than if we had to track it down on Baker and Taylor.
Yeah. That's not a deal breaker, though.
It's not,
yeah.
But it's easier
You're right.
for us.
It's
for
one
an
less
unheard of
step,
thing.
basically.
Yeah. Question number 2. Would sending out an email, either as a press release or targeted solicitation, be a more effective way to get comic shops to stock an indie graphic novel and not bother them than a phone call? No. I think that has a much better chance of being ignored.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is a difficult thing that we've never really learned as far as publicity and press and getting exposure. You do want to be bothering people. That is absolutely the point, is to kind of make them aware of something in a way where instead of it just being like, well, if you're interested, make them interested. Assume they're interested.
I listened to a podcast a while ago where somebody was saying that they hate the phrase, I'm sorry to bother you, because that is wasting everyone's time. Because you're already bothering them, and then to add, it's like adding insult to injury.
Yeah.
So just start your pitch right away, start your conversation right away. Don't be like, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, because what you're saying is, I know this is a bother, I know you don't want to hear from me, yet I'm still talking to you anyway.
Yeah, the basic
I don't necessarily agree with that. I still think that I'm sorry to bother you is at least a
very good movie. You're
right. A sliver of decorum.
Sure.
Like a tacit apology before.
Sure, but I like the idea behind it of, let's just get this over with.
Yeah.
You know, I'm already bothering you.
Rip that Band-Aid.
I don't want to put the listener in the position of having to tell me it's okay that I'm bothering them when they don't necessarily mean that yet. Yeah, in general, the idea behind promotion, especially in comics, you have to go into it. The best people who do this go into this with the idea that this is something that is good that you need to know about. Like, not just the I'm doing you a favor, get in on this Land Rush thing, but just this is a good book. It's going to do well for you. And this is a thing that's just my little pet peeve. Don't tell me you believe in it. I assume you believe in it.
You better believe in it.
Yeah,
You've been doing it this whole time.
I hope at the very least you believe in it. It's nice that you're reaching out, and that's definitely a point in your favor, but I don't need to hear how much it means to you. I don't care about that.
Also, I don't
can't
care if
sell,
it's a passion project.
Yeah, I can't sell your belief in your
I
project.
don't care
anymore.
how long you've been working on this.
If I don't care about it, my customers are definitely not going to care about it. So make sure that I understand how good and valuable this book is going to be to me as a retailer. Like, that's what I need to know. Not just how to sell it or who to sell it to, but that it is worth selling, that it has, merit. And there's a way to do that is kind of the crux of promotion, of how do you pitch that to someone. And I don't have the answer to that because I'm not a professional in either marketing or promotions. And hopefully if you're paying
Definitely
someone...
an amateur, though.
Yeah.
A high-ranking amateur.
Yeah. Vaguely embarrassing amateur. If you're paying someone for this, I would hope they would have the ability to do this. What you do not need is someone to just blandly call stores and tell them what page in the catalog this book is. Doesn't matter. You
I
might
mean,
as well just send out the emails then.
If time isn't an option, do both.
Yeah. But if you do have to send out an email, don't send me a press release. A press release is definitely going to get ignored. Something that's addressed to me or the store, or that has some vague understanding of what Challengers is as a store. This is something I think I talked about a while ago, which is that I think we maybe talked about this on the Graphic Novel TK podcast. If you're going to go to the trouble of targeting stores to make sure that your promotional strategy is the best after effect possible, make sure it's stores that are carrying the kind of book that you're trying to sell. So, target a store and maybe mention something about them. Like, if you can give it a little bit of personality, a little bit of uniqueness, I'm going to read the whole email. If it's just a press release, I'm probably going to skip over it because 90% of those that I get are telling me to do something on Kickstarter that I'm not going to do.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
that's one of my pet peeves. Don't say hey guys.
Get a whole lot of Kickstarter emails that tell me to go either buy a copy or do a retailer level or promote it on social media. Like, nope, not doing that.
Not gonna do that. No. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna call, have something to say.
Yeah, and again, just be
Aggressive. Aggressive.
I guess it's a fine line of
Not aggressive. That sounds rude.
definitely don't be aggressive.
Be confident.
When you're calling stores, they aren't doing you the favor, you're doing them the favor. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to push what you're selling as something that's going to be valuable for them.
Just don't phrase it like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the mentality you should have, but obviously you want to make it a little bit more friendly than that.
Because they are doing you the favor by listening to you. But what they don't know until they listen to you is that you're doing them the bigger favor in the long run because of all the money you're going to make them.
That's how I mean it, is the book that you're selling, the book that you have, the store is not doing you the favor by carrying it. That's not the way you need to pitch it. I've had people pitch me it that way, where it's very like, not help me out, but it has that feel to it, and I don't care about that. That's not a valuable sales tool for me. But when it's something where this is why it's going to do well, you should take a look at it, that means more to me. That makes me understand that they, as a creator, have an awareness of the marketplace and understand that this is not just a work of art that they're putting up in a gallery or displaying in a museum. This is a product that has to be sold. And that if that piece of art does not have kind of a way to work in the current marketplace, then you might as well just hang it up on a wall. Like, I can't sell it then.
And it's one thing for you to sell it to us. It's another thing for us to be able to sell it to somebody else repeatedly and with enough confidence to want to buy more from you.
Yeah.
And to treat you well the next time you have a new product to
Yeah.
put out.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say was, don't attach preview pages. Give us the whole book.
Sure. I would say preview pages in the email, a link to the PDF somewhere in the email.
Yeah, but don't just give us preview pages.
Right. But sometimes I like to see those in the email
Okay.
to see if I want to see more of this. And maybe don't put them in there because frequently my decision making is, oh, these preview pages look terrible. I am not downloading this. So I guess maybe in retrospect, do not put preview pages in there if you want me to look at the whole book.
We have slightly answered a lot of question 3, but here's question 3.
Okay, let's do it anyway.
What info would you want to hear before ordering an indie graphic novel? I'd planned on saying elevator pitch, target audience with example of what else they read, MSRP, marketing plan, and an offer a PDF of both volumes.
Yeah, I think that's all very valuable.
The marketing plan is the best idea. Like,
Sure.
most people don't give us that when they have their new book.
Okay.
Their marketing is what they're... To them, a marketing plan is calling us.
Yeah, right. One of the things that retailers complain about to large companies in the market, not just self-publishers, is how are people going to learn about this book? What is going to make someone who doesn't shop here come to my store looking for this book? I know how to vaguely sell it to people who shop at my store. I need new people coming and looking for it. Like, especially if you're doing something that's a brand new property or something outside of what traditionally does well at comic shops. How are those people going to find out about it? How is that new market going to find comic books?
Yeah.
And most major publishers don't have a great answer for that. So, yeah, if you've got a marketing plan that has a way to drive traffic to stores, that is the number one thing stores want to hear.
But also, elevator pitch, yes. Target audience with examples of what else they read? Yes. Price? Sure. PDFs? You bet.
Sure.
Everything you said.
Yeah, all that sounds really
Just
good.
about everything you said.
I'd love it to be concise. Obviously, like this whole phone call that, in theory, that we're getting from someone, I don't know that I want it to be more than 5 minutes long.
Even that's a lot.
That's a
Yeah.
very... That's
Plus-
a lot of my time to give up in the middle of a day.
Plus, if you're calling hundreds of stores, you don't want that either.
No. Well, hopefully you're paying someone who your budget can have them. I wouldn't say even hundreds of stores. I mean, legitimately, when I'm thinking about the comics market, and
Couple dozen.
maybe Diamond could refute this based on what they're seeing as far as sales velocity for a lot of the stuff from like Scholastic and First Second. I'd be shocked if in North America, it's worth calling even 100 stores.
Definitely call the Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, you could name... I'm sure we could both name like a dozen stores right now that probably would be worth calling.
Challengers.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to call challengers, but obviously there's chains that have a bunch of stores that it's worth trying to get a hold of someone higher up at like Graham Crackers or Coliseum or Midtown or places like that have a lot of accounts that you could hopefully make an impression on them, and then they would kind of from a top-down perspective spread it out to their stores. But places like the Dragon, like Four Colors, like I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of stores. There's a whole bunch of stores in the U.S. and in Canada that are worth reaching out to. And if you do maybe a cursory examination in like Publishers Weekly or ICV2, like hopefully you could find some stores that have large, well done, all ages younger reader sections to know that they're ones that, I mean, you get them to say yes, they're going to order 5 or 6 copies. There's a lot of stores where even if you got them to say yes, 1 or 2. So what's worth your time,
But just be careful. Sometimes it could backfire because you might get someone who won't let you go when you need to go. For example, when Aubrey Sitterston called to talk about the comic book story of professional wrestling,
Sure.
he got me.
Uh-huh.
And I already knew who he was.
You
from
love
his,
comic book
his
stories
past.
and professional wrestling.
Right. So after about 20 minutes, he's like, hey, man, I got to go.
I am on the clock here, and you're already going to buy my book.
Well, we already were falling out over his dislike of Will Ospreay and Flip Gordon.
Yeah, that's just
So, I mean,
crazy to me.
The ice was already breaking, but you might have somebody who is willing to talk to you for a while.
Sure.
Maybe not about your book, though.
Yeah.
Joseph, thank you very much. We
Thanks,
hope we were
Joseph.
some help. And, feel free to call and talk about your book.
Yeah, and obviously, best of luck on your fiance's book. It's fun to see anybody making new comics nowadays, and we look forward to seeing what the book looks like.
Next up. This comes from young Chris Burton from what part of the country?
Colorado, I think?
From Colorado. You better know.
I think. I had to think about that for a second. I didn't get it wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Colorado.
Young Chris Burton from Colorado. Do you think there is a
No, I
realistic
usually
way...
don't.
Wow, this is tying into last questions. Do you think there is a realistic way to market/advertise comics to a wider audience? Yes, 100%. There definitely is. It's not our job to do it, but there is definitely realistic ways to market. Like, for example, I've always said I wanted, and this goes back over a decade now, an advertising campaign like Got Milk for comics, where it's not company or character specific, but like, for example, it was celebrities reading comics, celebrities who are known comic fans reading comics. That kind of endorsement might show people what's there. The comic shop locator service, which is mentioned sometimes in a conjunction to stuff, but not on all these movies. Not like there should be. I say should. I'm sure Hollywood doesn't work this way, but why can't in the credits of an Avengers Endgame can they show covers of the source material where this came from? It's one thing. It's one thing to say, Wonder Woman was created by William Moulton Marston and F off H.H. Peters. You're too old. It's another thing to show it, to show the property or something. Like, just seeing any credit doesn't mean anything to people. And this is a longer conversation that we've had a million times about how people engage with media the way they experience it for the first time. The Avengers to them are movies because they've seen Avengers movies. But if the publisher who owns these characters goes out of their way to really push the source material, that's a way to do it. I mean, I'm not a professional marketing expert like Dal Bush is, but there are definitely ways to do it. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of ways. DC has tried some commercials for some of their stuff, most recently with the Rebirth graphic novels as they were coming out, and they would be on like MeTV and classic stations like that. I've never seen them, but I don't watch those shows.
Sure.
But for sure, there's a realistic way to market advertise comics.
Okay. Counterpoint. No, there's not.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of this is down to pessimism, but basically there have been decades of companies having opportunities to do it and not doing it. And there's for some of these companies, they're ones that have been really well capitalized and have had basically next to zero success. At least as far as comic shops are concerned. I can't speak to at the publishing level what they're seeing, but at the comic shop level, like virtually no change. The thing I point to frequently, at least as far as us anecdotally, we do Free Comic Book Day every year. You and I have both done Free Comic Book Day. Every year there's been a Free Comic Book Day. How much additional traffic do we see after Free Comic Book Day? Reliably.
Didn't you just use as an answer to a different question that it's the publisher's job to get new people to come into the stores looking for those books?
Sure, but that wasn't Chris's question.
Okay.
Do you want to restate Chris's question?
Do you think there is a realistic way to market advertise comics to a wider audience? So you're focusing on the realistic part.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is wider audience, if wider... I guess technically wider, yes. Wide, no.
Okay.
Like, I think what a lot of people expect is, and this is a thing that I was just reading an article in The Guardian that's saying, with superheroes being as big as they've probably ever been in the last 50 years, why are so many comic shops closing? And there's really no answer. The answers are basically like, retail in general is screwed. Most comic shops are in like high rent locations, and that's why they're going out of business. Like St. Mark's didn't go out of business because comics are bad. It went out of business because the rent is insane in that part of Manhattan. Like,
yeah. I want to do a quick side note.
Yeah.
There was a podcast you did an interview for a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
And I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Did it go up?
It went up.
Oh, okay.
It's like a hour and 20-minute episode. There's an interview with 3 separate Chicago comic shops.
Okay.
At the very end, at like the last like 15-20 minute mark.
Okay.
And that's 3 stores worth.
Sure.
I don't remember the name of the podcast.
Deconstructing Comics?
Okay.
I think that is.
So the episode is up, but the interviewer does ask each store, like basically the narrative of that episode is Marvel is killing the industry and they wanted the stores to back it up.
Yeah, one of the questions the guy asked, it was only like a few minutes. Like,
yeah.
I thought it was going to be longer, and I'm grateful that it wasn't super long because I had work to do. But one of the first questions he asked was something about, like, what's our like Marvel DC to everybody else product mix?
Yeah.
And I think I said like our Marvel DC stuff was like 40% or something. And he kind of stopped, like he had a follow-up question that was supposed to follow a different number that I was going to say. And when I said 40, he's like, what?
I think you said, and I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I didn't
you probably listened to it.
I think you said 50 to 60.
Oh, okay.
But everybody, or like maybe 40 to 50. But the other stores both said like 80%.
Oh, yeah. I would not say that for us.
Yeah. Which is more in keeping. But I'll stop talking about that episode because
I haven't listened to it yet. Thank you.
You're right. No spoilers.
But yeah, getting back to the marketing to a wider audience, I just look at a lot of the things that publishers have tried and the industry as a whole has tried, and it seems like the traction just isn't there. And you can say it's for a lot of different reasons, but all of those reasons are going to keep existing. Like, one of the things that we heard for decades was we can't do, as publishers, we can't do wider promotion because there's not enough comic shops. There's way less comic shops now than there was when they were saying that. Thousands less. if we promote this book, is that what's the book we're going to pick? What's the one that's going to resonate? And every store is going to say something different.
Right.
And every market's different.
And the money that it would cost to nationally advertise a book would never be made up in increased sales by the marketplace.
For a $4, $5 comic book. So all these things, and it's... And for comic shops, they're not going to like this part of the answer, which is that you can probably increase awareness of comics, but that's going to lead people to order stuff on Amazon or Comixology or the DC Universe app or whatever. Like, even if it grows the market, it's not necessarily going to be in ways that you see in your store. You may over time, and increased awareness of the art form is great. And we've talked before about the idea of kind of getting people in that kind of newsstand way where they're just sampling it, they're figuring it out, because a few of those people are going to get activated into hardcore fans, and they're going to need a specialist shop to find more books, to get more feedback, to cultivate their experience a little better than a huge buffet of comics in a digital format is going to do for them. But that's a very step-by-step progressive long-term strategy, which is not necessarily what I think Chris is maybe asking about here.
Sure.
There is not a way that I can look at, even if you put Saga commercials on TV, I don't know if that's suddenly going to sell 50,000 more copies of Saga Volume 1 in the next month. It's probably not. It's not how promotion works, I guess. The things that work well for these things in general are transmedia properties. Walking Dead didn't start selling really well because people realized Walking Dead was a really good comic. It's because millions of people discovered the AMC show and needed more stuff. That market, though, is kind of tapped out. We sold, as a market, millions more copies of Watchmen when the Watchmen trailer dropped. That's way better than any, before Watchmen commercial that they aired on AMC or whatever.
Yeah.
No one cared about those books, but they saw a trailer for a movie that looked exciting to them, and suddenly they were like, what is Watchmen? This thing looks crazy. So yeah, I would say maybe temper the enthusiasm for what's possible in this market.
Next question. This comes from the western two-thirds of the country, I believe from the Colorado area, from Christopher Burton. What, in quotes, important comic book series or graphic novel have you never read? For me, Mouse.
Love and Rockets. That's one thing it's not like a bucket list thing, but it's a thing that the more Jaime stuff that comes out that is Book of the Year, it's I gotta do this at some point. And some of it is I dislike how Fantagraphics collects it. If they just did a strict numbered Jaime, numbered Gilbert, I would probably do that. But with the way they did it, where it's here are these collections and which one's which. And
I mean, they used to do it the way you're talking about.
Right, but that was before I wouldn't say it's before I was aware of Love and Rockets, but it's before I was aware that I wanted to read Love and Rockets.
Yeah, before your tastes moved in that direction.
Yeah, so Love and Rockets for sure. I really should. I'm sure I'd really enjoy that whole saga, especially the Jaime stuff. I really love his art.
There's a better chance you get more out of it now than if you'd read it 10 years ago.
Probably. Yeah, that's Love and Rockets for me is definitely the one.
Our next question comes from, I can't read this handwriting. I think it says Chris Burton. What character would you most like to see appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we haven't seen yet?
Do you want to take this one first?
Death's Head.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I'd say Gwenpool. I think a fourth wall breaking Marvel Cinematic Universe fan Gwenpool could be a lot of fun. I think that would be something on Disney Plus that I think would go over really well. My
immediate answer was Grimjack, but he's not necessarily a Marvel character, and I say necessarily, but he's not a Marvel character at all. Necessarily. But I mean, only technically he's not, and he was never published by Marvel. I just wanted to see a Grimjack movie, but I tempered it and put in Death's Head. Who counts, because he's in the Marvel Universe. Yeah, man, I'd be into a Death's Head movie for sure. He's got a new book coming out from Tini Howard, and covers by Nick Roche, whom I inked on a Transformers book. Yeah, with all the stuff that's coming to Disney Plus and all the stuff that they're talking about for the next phase of movies, things like Eternals, there's very little I can look at as a property that Marvel's published and go, well, they'd never do that. I don't know, maybe. Death's Head does not seem completely out of the question. Even if he just, appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, sure, maybe. Yeah. Why not? Weirder characters in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. How about Rima Williams, since Marvel published the Destroyer comics? And he already had a movie. Fred Ward is too old now, but
Sure.
same thing with Godzilla. Marvel published Godzilla comics. Red Ronin.
Yeah, Shogun Warriors.
Red Ronin was their Shogun Warrior that they
was their
made.
one? Okay.
Yeah. Red Ronin is theirs. Yeah, Red Ronin. Oh, yeah.
How about the Japanese Spider-Man, Spider-Man?
I mean, he's technically is part of Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I assumed he was somewhere in the background of Into the Spider-Verse.
No.
This one's for you, Dal.
Uh-oh.
This one comes from Chris Burton.
Okay. I'm hearing that name a lot tonight.
I thought these were 4 different people with the same name.
Yeah, I didn't say it was the same person, but
Oh,
I'm hearing that
okay.
name a lot tonight.
Why do you think books like West Coast Avengers and X-23 don't succeed? I'd like to point out that
I didn't know if
he's
there's
been
more.
he's been doing anecdotes, as in comic series or graphic novel. The important ones he hasn't read would be Sandman or V for Vendetta, and he personally loves both West Coast Avengers and X-23.
Yeah, it's always been weird for us because the Marvel stuff, and some of the DC stuff, usually more Marvel, that tends to do really well for us is the stuff that is nearly instantly canceled. Like the stuff that we find a better reaction to from our customers is the stuff that the market as a whole is like, no one cares about this. The Vision obviously ended up doing great. Marvel did not only the 12-issue series, but they did the 6-issue director's cut issues, the 2 soft covers, the 1 hardcover. So clearly there was an overall market for it, but that was one that for us was basically outselling everything else Marvel was doing when Vision was coming out.
Let me add a question that I think is difficult to answer. Why do you think they don't work for most of the country?
Well, this is the thing, and this is why I think they get canceled. I think most stores could not care less about learning about these books. I think they go in with a preconception of what books are what, and they would rather just give me another Avengers comic. I know how to sell an Avengers comic. I don't want to find out who this other book is for. The other thing is, and I think this is not specific to Challengers, but I think it's definitely specific to a kind of comic shop nowadays, is going beyond just the, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, X-Men clientele of trying to say, we did great with Vision because Vision didn't just sell to Marvel fans, it sold to all types of comics fans. And we could do that because we have all types of comics fans shopping at Challengers. If you only have the Marvel guys, I know from experience the Marvel guys have a really kind of narrow interest in Marvel. Like, they don't care about everything Marvel does. They care about a specific kind of Marvel superhero comic book. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
So if you're a store that has a diverse clientele that's interested in a lot of different kinds of comics, those readers in turn are going to like a lot of different kinds of superhero comics. And I think a lot of stores don't have that audience for one reason or another. Chicken and the egg thing. Like, either they're not cultivating them, so they can't sell those comics, or those comics aren't selling, so they can't cultivate them. Do you know what I mean?
It's a difficult situation.
Yeah. The thing I'd probably drop it at the feet of is I think a lot of stores genuinely don't care about offbeat or challenging material for superheroes. They're just not interested in stuff that is not a solid core Marvel or DC title.
3 recent indie books, and by indie I mean Dark Horse and Image, that did really well for us. Little Bird, Assassin Nation, Invisible Kingdom. I've heard from a few different people that it was because we called them out. We printed up sheets and put them on the counter and had them there for a few weeks to people to see them and to read about what these books are.
Okay.
I can't help but wonder, and Deceased is going to do great for us.
Yeah.
But we could have done more for exposure for that. We could have put something like that up. We don't just randomly market books for no reason. We have to have faith in these books.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, while I'm grateful as a retailer for Deceased existing, because I know what that audience is and I know how that book is going to sell, I don't necessarily want to push that book.
Okay. But I mean, that was just an example.
Right.
I did those 3 books that one day, and we haven't done that since then.
Well,
but look at how those books did compared to...
Sure, but that's a kind of lightning in a bottle situation. Like, it just happened to be those 3 books were ones that we were excited about. Some of us more than others, but we were all excited about what those books could do and how they would sell in the store, so we pushed them. I'm sure there's books coming up. I'll be honest with you, they haven't sent us a PDF yet, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. I'm really excited about Reaver from Image.
Okay.
The Justin Jordan, Rebecca Isaacs, Becky Cloonan book. I think it's got a real swell pitch on it. The idea
Did
of
they
like,
not send us a PDF?
I don't think yet.
Okay.
I mean, it's
I
just
saw
in
something.
it's just in the catalog.
Sure.
I think the idea of like fantasy Suicide Squad, I think, is a really strong gimmick,
Okay.
and I think Justin Jordan has done some really fun dark stuff, and
Yeah.
I like Rebecca Isaac's art a lot. I think she's got a great sense of clarity in her layouts and designs that makes it a really easy book to read. I think the covers that I've seen, at least the first cover that Clunan did, I think look real good. They're very dynamic.
And let's not forget that Rebecca Isaacs knows her houseplants.
She does, it's true. So that's one that I do want to read a PDF, and that's, to be fair, like that was the thing that sold you on Little Bird.
Yeah.
Was they gave us a
reading it.
PDF and you
Yeah.
went, oh my god! And I said, this art! So it was very easy for us to agree, like, we should get behind this.
That's it. What comic store are we going to battle for Reaver? Come on, who is it?
Uh-oh.
No, we're not doing that.
No. But
We retire undefeated.
But that's a book that I can definitely see us getting behind, and if we do find a book like that again, we will definitely do the same thing. But, one, it's got to be a book we believe in, and two, we really don't want to overdo that. Like,
Right, we're not just going to do it every month to do it, then it becomes noise,
Yeah.
then it doesn't stand out.
if there's a story to Challengers and its activities over these last 11 years, it would be diminishing returns.
Yeah, if something works once, it won't work again.
Yeah. So by the third time, it's like, cool, we can never do this again because no one cares anymore.
Yep.
So we got to be very careful about how often we go to the, like, hey, here's a book that we're putting everywhere in the store and we put on the counter and we're doing a money-back guarantee, and hey, have you tried this? Like, can't do that too often. Pick your shots.
Chris Burton, thank you for the questions.
Thanks, Chris.
Now, before this episode started, I had said to Dal that we were just going to answer these quick 7 questions and then pretend it was the end of the episode, but we got virtually a full-length episode just with those questions.
Yeah, I did not think we would need nearly as many questions as you did to go through an episode, because we can get off on tangents real
Sure,
fast.
but I thought the questions would be more like Chris's what important comic book series a graphic novel, like things
Those
that
were short, sure.
didn't necessarily require explanation,
No.
just an answer.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were going to pretend the episode was over, and then run the credits, and then have the actual stuff from this week
do
to talk
the
about.
real episode.
Well, I mean, the rest of it, the non-question part.
Sure.
Because I don't want to imply that the questions weren't real. But we're not doing that because we've come far enough.
We talked for 48 minutes
Yeah.
and change.
So we've got a brief couple of other topics. Why don't you start with yours?
Okay, so let me grab my phone and put it.
I mean, I might be able to answer.
Oh,
have your specifics.
I wanted to be specifics.
1 through 6
Okay, so
in May. No, not in May. In October.
There was an announcement today that DC is going to be doing Doomsday Clock Part 1 graphic novel coming out October 2019. It'll have the first 6 issues. The ICV2 article I'm reading states that it'll also have all the supplemental material, but I assumed it would. The supplemental material is just the last 5 or 6 pages.
Yeah.
Where it's usually like an article in the Daily Planet or like a map or something. And all 6 variant covers by Gary Frank. 224-page collection, MSRP $24.99. Doomsday Clock Part 2 will collect issue 7 through 12, scheduled for May 2020. Now, those of you close to a calendar may realize that is well over a year from when I'm saying these words.
That's true.
For 6 issues. So, the thing that I kind of wanted to check, because I'm looking at this and I, as a retailer, immediately know why this is happening. But I looked at this and I thought, God, that's weird. Doomsday Clock Part 1. Why are you even doing Part 1 when you're already on issue 9 of the book? And you only have 3 issues more to go. Well, the fact that you're not putting out Part 2 for 13 months, 12 months in a few days.
Well, but I mean, count it for when they're doing 2 after Volume 1. So October to May.
Right. Well, I guess the thing is, you're on issue 9 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I did check on this. Let me see if I can bring it up. Because my question to myself was, how exactly is putting out a Volume 1 that collects issues 1 through 6 in October 2019, how does that work on the release calendar of Doomsday Clock? So, issue 6 came out.
Is your ultimate point that you don't think that 12 will be out by next May?
No, I'm saying, this is... They're doing this because they absolutely cannot wait on doing a collection, because issue 6 came out July 2018. So if they were always planning on doing 2 collections, they would not have waited... What does that work out to? 16 months
Yeah.
from the release of issue 6, it would already be in stores at this point. So this absolutely feels like them saying, oh my god, we thought we were going to have a collection in stores for holiday 2019. A bunch of our internal numbers kind of depended on it. There's no way we're going to have that thing ready to go to have any sort of sales impact in 2019.
Now, how dare you? I don't think that you're skipping the altruism of them trying to get a strong holiday seller for us. They're not doing it for them.
Well, and this is
They're doing it for us.
This is the
so
thing.
we have a thing to sell this fall holiday season, which, by the way, was a quote. The fall holiday season.
Fall
was a
holiday
quote.
season. So this is the thing. On the one hand, I think it's hilarious and dispiriting that as a publisher, DC Comics is so bad at getting a signature project out on time that they have to, what sounds like, radically alter their collection plans to make sure that there is some format of this they can sell to bookstores and actually make some goddamn money off of this thing before it's too late. On the other hand, as one of those places that would like to sell a collected edition, because we have people coming in nearly every week asking when the Doomsday Clock collection is coming out and having to tell them some point in the future, we don't know when because they keep rescheduling issues. I like the idea of having at least something to sell to them for the last 3 months of this year.
Agreed. It's just that if you look at what has worked for Watchmen for us, it is the soft-cover 12-issue collection.
Oh, for sure. There's no version of this where I'm like, I'm glad they're doing it as 2 books instead of 1.
Right.
No version.
But more than that, you know that we now have to wait for softcover Volume 1, softcover Volume 2. When those are both done, hardcover full collection.
Yeah.
Then softcover full collection.
Yep.
We're looking at like 3 years from getting...
I don't think it'll take that long. Assuming they can actually get the softcover Volume 2 out in May 2020, no guarantees. To have a little parenthetical on this, Doomsday Clock, when it was pitched to us as retailers, we were told the publication schedule was 3 issues on, 1 month off, 3 issues on, and they would continue that way for the duration of the book. Meaning that when they launched it in November of 2017... the whole thing basically should have been done by
in 15 months.
By summer 2019.
Yeah.
Basically what we're looking at. So the fact that we are telescoping out issue, I think 11 is currently scheduled for August. And I say currently scheduled because these things are basically pushed back 1 week every week. Like every week of April, we have been getting notifications from DC that the next issue of Doomsday Clock, issue 10, has been pushed back 1 more week. And 1 more week. And now it's like end of May is the current date for 10, but we'll see. So the idea that 12 will even be out by the end of this year, really don't see it happening. I don't think it's going to happen. But assuming they can get it Volume 2 out by May 2020, I think they're going to do the hardcover very quickly after that. I think it'll be something that'll probably come out like October 2020, probably. Okay. And then they'll probably do the softcover of that in the summer of the next year, I think. Or maybe the winter of the next year.
Okay, so 2 to 2.5 years.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to take them forever. I think once the material's in hand and finished, they'll get those collections out very rapidly.
I just don't expect us to do a lot of softcover Volume 2 and hardcover.
No. Like, basically, we'll stock it, but we're not going to stock deep on it.
Right.
We'll stock deep on Volume 1 softcover and the hardcover, but sure. Not a Volume 2 softcover.
I wouldn't say deep on the hardcover.
I mean,
we'll see.
A fully collected hardcover? I think there's still going to be a market for it. Not Watchmen market, but definitely more than a before Watchmen market.
Didn't you have low expectations for the hardcover Mr. Miracle and the hardcover White Knight?
Yeah, but those are just hardcovers of things they've already released in softcover. This would be a compiled hardcover.
Okay.
Like, if they were doing a hardcover book 1, I wouldn't care. But I assume a hardcover is going to be all 12 issues, the complete Doomsday Clock.
I mean, neither of us in our expectations of what this schedule would be had a hardcover Volume 1, but what if they do?
I don't think we would stock it. I wouldn't care a lot.
I mean, we don't stock the before Watchmen hardcovers.
We don't stock the before Watchmen softcovers.
Well, sure. Moving on, since we're talking about DC, this week sees the launch of their DC's Year of the Villain one-shot, which is basically another Free Comic Day book, but basically not.
Yeah, it's a 25-cent comic that will be selling for 25 cents starting Wednesday, May 1st. But if you come in on Saturday, May 4th, it's going to be one of our Free Comic Book Day options.
But if it's in your box and you come in to get it on Saturday, we're still charging you.
Yes.
And I sent you a message. I'm sure you saw it, but you didn't respond.
I did. Well, I didn't see it until hours later.
Sure. My point is that because we have to enter it in the system as a special order for people, because we've had a fair number of people after this week's email say that they wanted it, and since it's a 25-cent book, and since they're club members, they get a discount for quote-unquote pre-ordering it, which this isn't. It's not as easy. It's typing it in as a subscription, because it's not a subscription, it's a special order.
Correct.
And then it's only 25 cents minus our discount, so my comment to you was that the effort that it takes to put this in the system to hold it for somebody is not worth the 13 cents that we'll make on this book.
Right. And
it's not even 13 cents, it's less.
Right. And what's galling about it is that even if we said, like, as a rule, like, we're not taking reservations because it's not worth our time to take the reservations, you're going to spend just as much energy communicating that to someone who's asking to reserve it as actually taking the reservation.
I mean,
so you're screwed either way.
It's my fault. I shouldn't have put it as a call out in the email.
No.
Mentioning that it was a quarter.
I don't know. Like, the advantage of people reserving it and buying it is not the money that they're spending on it so much as their exposure to upcoming events.
Yeah.
Like, as a promotional tool, them being excited enough to want to reserve it is probably good for us in the long run. Maybe that's the way to look at it.
Sure. Yes, that. That is why we will happily
I think it sort of worked last year. I mean, I remember people being aware of No Justice and The Batman Wedding and... What was the other one?
I'm sorry, the what?
The Batman Wedding. Was it?
I don't remember that.
There was another story in that issue, and I can't remember what it was. Was it Superman?
Superman, yeah. It was the
Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Superman story, right?
The two women talking about Superman's cape. No, that was Bendis' story in Action 1000.
Yeah.
It was the Jose Luis Garcia Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. Speaking of Superman, so there's
I was speaking to Superman. Yes,
I said of. There are two what look to be amazing Superman-related books coming up soon. Two 12-issue miniseries.
Yeah.
Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Jesus. But no, Jesus is not Superman's pal. Is he? Who knows?
That's in that second Coming book that's going to be released by Ahoy Comics this week.
Matt Fraction and close personal friend and challenger Steve Lieber.
Good artist and good human being Steve Lieber.
Lois Lane by Greg Rucka and Mike Perkins.
Do you think they're going to put Superman's wife Lois Lane on the cover?
No, I definitely do not.
Are they going to use that old 4-issue Mindy Newell logo?
Sure.
Do you think they can use
Why
that?
Why not?
Because it's like 35 years old. They could probably do better now.
So, who cares? What better? That was great.
Who better than Lois?
I ask you, who better? Well, it turns out that our close personal friend Paul Mounts is coloring Lois Lane.
Oh, that's cool.
And
Mike Perkins?
Over Mike Perkins. And he was in the store today visiting. Mm-hmm. And he happened to have the pages from the Leviathan special with him.
Okay.
And Paul Mounts, when I think of Paul Mounts as a colorist, I think of like a full palette and kind of bright colors. And my first thing was, isn't like Mike Perkins is real dark and moody? And Paul said, yeah, but I think that this works. And those pages are gorgeous.
Cool.
Paul Mounts isn't coloring these pages, he is painting these pages.
That's exciting.
These are like watercolor painted pages, and he manages to use a lot of color while staying in the moody darkness, the heavy blues, dark browns of Mike Perkins' noir style.
So the pages look good?
Oh, yeah.
Because of the 4 names that were announced when they announced these 2 series, Greg Rucka, Matt Fraction, Steve Lieber, Mike Perkins. Mike Perkins was the name where I'm like, oh, okay. Mike Perkins, not my favorite style of art.
Sure.
So I'm glad these pages look good.
He's very classic, and he's very real world, if you will.
Yes.
And I own an original Mike Perkins Captain America page, which he drew at printed size, comic book page size, because he got it was a late last minute, like, can you please do this book?
Sure.
So to save time, he did it that way. And I asked Paul what size he draws at, and Paul says he doesn't know because he gets digital files.
Oh yeah, nowadays.
But Steve Lieber's posting a lot of the Jimmy Olsen pages with just no dialogue.
Okay.
On just black and white, his line art. And they look great. They're so fun and full of energy, and so many ridiculous things happen.
Yeah, I think Lieber's a great dude at communicating humor in comic art. It's a very hard skill to have that kind of staging work.
He does want to point out that this is not a humor book. but
Right.
it is funny.
But that is his skill. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got a lot of things he does well, but that's the one that I usually think of when I think of his art is a lot of the kind of like visual multi-panel gags in stuff like The Fix and Superior Foes.
And these Lois Lane pages were not lettered
Okay.
because it's the ones he's working on. That's
Sure.
the coloring.
Sure.
But I got
That's all digital too.
I got the gist of the story, and it is not Lois by herself. There are some prominent guest stars, which I think Greg Rucka fans will be happy about.
Okay.
2 characters that
Lazarus?
he's definitely written before.
Lazarus.
It is the whole
Carlisle
old guard.
family.
This week, upcoming is Free Comic Book Day, and we're going to be open for 12 hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
We will have 3 artists signing every hour that we're open, which is a logistical issue for us. We'll figure out.
Yeah, we sort of planned on 2, and then it became 3, and then it became all day 3.
Yeah.
So that was a solving one problem and then having to solve that problem a second time.
So we'll have a couple of different groups of cosplayers. We have no idea what they're doing per se. We know there's going to be a Gwenom. There's going to be a Coney Island She-Hulk. Mm-hmm. That is all we know for sure.
Yeah, there's 2 other groups that we're kind of waiting to hear back from because this is a busy weekend for both groups for different reasons.
Yes. I gave one of the groups some advice of something that I would like to see, but I don't know that they'll get to it in time.
Yeah.
But that'll be fun. So we'll have that happening, and we have, we're advertising this in the usual places across our front window with 3 giant paper banners that are 5 feet wide and 4 feet high.
Yep, you can see them across the street.
And I've had 2 people come in, point to the little window cling, and ask questions about the day because of that.
Okay, cool.
And also misread that, saying, it says it's the first week of May? What does that mean? No, it's the first Saturday of
It
May.
absolutely does not say that.
It's so weird how that tiny little, just 4 by 5 inch thing.
Yeah. It's cool that it works.
But anyway, we have it advertised on our Facebook page as a special event.
Yes.
As an event from Challengers on the Challengers Facebook page. Well, another comic shop tried to advertise their day in the comment section of our page. I'll give you one guess, but then you have to stop guessing.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just going to say it. Rick from One Stop tried to put an ad for his Free Comic Book Day event, and it was an Alex Ross Justice Society painting with blue word balloons
Okay.
and just like a regular font, like not a comic book font, not a speech font,
Sure.
not a typewriter font, but just like a regular. It was like font, like
Papyrus? Was it papyrus?
it was not papyrus, but it would say like comic books.
Uh-huh.
It was
Wow.
as if your dad just learned Print Shop Pro or something.
Yeah. MS Paint.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, left it as a comment on our page.
Wow.
But
Thanks, dude.
because I set all comments had to be approved,
Uh-huh.
it wasn't up there. I just got to go in and delete
As a
it.
moderator, you're like,
But I'm like, really?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah. Tacky. It's a little tacky.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it was Rick himself, but it was his personal account.
Right.
But somebody
Somebody
tried.
on behalf of One Stop decided that would be a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
Which, look, I love it when people go to a bunch of different comic shops for Free Comic Book Day. I've never had the ability to do that, but I see why it would be fun to make, like, a going to comic shops day of it. Like, that's awesome. I don't think other stores need to promote on other stores' pages that they are also doing Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
Maybe don't do that.
Right.
That's a little tacky.
Yep. I mentioned how a former employee had messaged or reached out to somebody who's saying, well, I don't have somewhere to sign. Like, hey, you should try Challengers. Someone else did that today. With a creator, I had to jump in and say, hey, this is so great you're thinking of. Thanks so much. We're full up.
Yeah.
We'd love to do something in the future.
Yes.
We don't have room.
No. At this stage in the game, we do not have
definitely
room.
do not.
We didn't have room 2 decisions to make room ago.
I believe I talked a few weeks ago about seeing somebody pretending to put up public hearing signs on the Jensen Plating Works building across the street.
Okay.
Do you remember this at all?
I think so.
But I can't remember if it was a conversation that we had or the podcast. Basically, Ashley Challenger and I were working on a Friday, and we saw a woman put up a public hearing sign, but just like lean it against the window, off the window ledge, take a photo, then move it to the chain link fence, and tape it to the chain link fence, take some photos of that, and then take it down and drive away.
Oh, okay.
As if to say, no, I put the signs up.
Yeah.
Look, here's the
I
proof.
advertised the public hearing.
Well, something interesting was happening today on the Jensen Plating Works building. They were tuck pointing it. Scaffolding up front, two guys with like air
Weird.
hoses coming over from the top of the building,
Weird.
working on all the mortar. in
Beautifying
between
it?
Yeah.
Instead of tearing it to the foundation they were supposed to?
You could not tell what they were doing. It looked like tuck pointing. They were air hoses. They were like it wasn't saws. It wasn't liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there for a few hours and they were gone. I'm like, what is happening with this building?
That building's always been a mystery. I don't know how they could keep in business being human traffickers, but I don't know.
So weird.
I guess that's what plating works means?
And
I don't understand how that is.
Because there was the scaffolding activity, Gina kept looking across the street, and she saw something that is a weird thing we've not seen before. A meter maid who was only policing the median in the middle of Western Avenue. This guy with his ticket book and his yellow like fluorescent vest. You know how sometimes semis will park in the middle to unload?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Or something like that. Like this guy was just walking back and forth just on the median. If there's like a car that pulled there, he'd be like, you can't be here.
Huh. That's weird.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem useful.
I've never seen that. Now, I didn't get a close look at him in action, but Gina would give me commentary as it happened. So I don't know what the point of that is. Like, what utility trucks use that all the time?
Yeah. I mean, there's no place for an 18-wheeler to park on Western Avenue.
Yeah.
You have to park there.
Or, like, Delgado's would have their tow trucks there sometimes with broken down cars and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, when places when trucks would park there, they're not parked there for, like, a day or a week. They're parked there for, like, 45 minutes.
To get something done.
Yeah. No one wants to stay there.
Well, I don't want to stay here any longer, so let's leave. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
See you on Free Comic Book Day. Will we? Will we see you?
Me? Yeah, you'll definitely see me. I'll be there for 12 hours.
Wait, that means for me to see you, I have to be there too. Damn it.
Yeah, I'll see you on Free Comic Book Day.
Fine.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.